Hi, I'm Kate from Nancy's Notions. Sometimes the simple question of what if can change the way you work on and approach certain projects. Precut fabric strips aren't usually compatible with larger wedge-shaped templates. They don't always fit. But what if we change the process slightly and they work beautifully together? For decades, we've created Dresden fans or blocks by simply cutting wedge-shaped pieces from wider strips of fabric. But then I also love the fabric variety in pre-cut 2.5-inch wide packs or jelly rolls. I'd like to show you how to combine the two in this creative Dresden hack. I'm starting with my 2.5-inch wide strips. They're the width of fabric, or approximately 40 inches long. I used 16 strips. So I had 8 in a light color and 8 strips in a darker contrast color. And I'm going to alternate them because that's going to give the most dramatic effect. I like to starch my fabric strips first using a starch or starch alternative such as Best Press. And then I will sew these together with a 1/4 inch seam. And then what we're going to do is press those seams open. So on the entire length of that fabric strip, press the seams open nice and flat. Once you have all those seams pressed open, you're going to cut that long strip of fabric into 10-inch length. So I have all my 10-inch lengths sewn together in a really long piece of fabric. It's now multicolored and it's full of seams, but this is where the fun is going to begin. For the cutting setup, I have the panel going away from me, and what I'm going to do, since this panel is much longer than my template, I'm going to line up the 9-inch marking along the cut edge of my panel, and the center line of the template lines up right on that first seam. And this is where I'm going to follow the template and cut out my first wedge. One thing I do recommend for templates, especially when you're cutting over seams, it helps to have a little grip, such as a true grip, underneath attached to the template to help prevent slipping. I move around a lot when I cut out, especially using a template, because I never want to cut towards myself or across. So I always try to cut away from where my body is positioned. I'm trying to not cut too far into the edge. If you don't quite get that little bit released, I just go back with the scissors. For this design, it's more important that I don't cut into my leftover piece. We're going to be using that. Okay, first 3 blades are cut out. We're going to cut some more. This time, I'm going to lay the template in what's left over from our first cuts, again, lining up the center line, and I am just positioning the template so that I can use as much fabric as possible. So really what's going to fit nicely in this leftover is the 7.5-inch wedge. So I'll cut all the rest of my leftover wedges 7.5 inches. And if it's easier for you, once you have the first 2 cuts, to just reposition that and reposition your template for you to comfortably cut, that's good too. You'll repeat this for the entire length of the strip-pieced fabric. Once you have all your wedges cut out, we're ready to create the pointed ends. That is a truly classic Dresden edge finish. I have the sewing machine set up with the flexible seam guide as well as the 1/4 inch foot that goes with it. This way I can ensure that I'm going to get a very accurate 1/4 inch seam. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take my wedge, now my 2-color wedge, fold it right sides together, right at the seam. And because it was cut perfectly lined up with the template, I'm going to have perfect alignment. I've set my sewing machine at about a 1.8 or even a 2.0 stitch length will be just fine. Once I get almost to the end, I'm going to get my second wedge ready. Just quick fold, line up the 2 cut edges at the corner there, and insert it right under the presser foot so I can chain sew, stitching from one blade to the next very efficiently. And we'll continue this process to complete all the wedges or Dresden blades that we need for any project we might be working on. What I'm going to do is cut very close to the edge where the two cut edges are stitched together, leaving a little tail that's going to act like a little lock stitch, always cutting next to the cut edges of the fabric. Then just cut off a little bit of that corner. Since there's a seam allowance there, it's a little bit bulky. And this is why that little tail is handy, because we're going to be finger pressing that seam open and then turn it right side out. And we can do a preliminary little bit of a shaping here with a point turner so we get a nice looking point. But you'll see how easy it is to get a perfectly shaped point by lining up the seam of the upper part of the wedge with the main seam in the lower part of the wedge. So let's get these pressed. I'm going to just gently fold and align my seams, and I'm using a thermal thimble to help protect my fingers so that I can place the iron tip right on that seam and gently press and getting the outer edges as well. But this way, with my finger protected, I can easily help hold that in place. When you have all your wedges completed with the beautiful tips, there's the fun, and that is arranging all those blades or wedges into even a quarter kind of shape. And if you look at the quilt behind me, we've got halves and 3/4 and even a full. So this is part of the fun of playing with those multicolored wedges. It gives you a lot of diversity. This is an arrangement with 20 different blades, and we've sewn them all together. And then this is the center that will go on top of this piece to finish it off. Now, what if you interpreted 8 different blades as a peacock tail? That could be pretty fun. Here's an idea of using a half of a Dresden block, putting them end for end, so you get a really fun serpentine kind of look. This would look great in high contrast fabrics. By combining a half Dresden block with quarter Dresden blocks, you can really get incredible movement throughout your quilt top. The Dresden hack that I just showed you would be a really fantastic little miniature tree skirt. And you aren't limited to the points. You could certainly do a scalloped edge as well and add more variety yet. Placemats could be another option, but also think about using the Dresden hack as just a wedge shape and then sew them back together. You would have incredible movement and coloration using the split Dresden that I just showed you right in a new panel of fabric. Here you'll see a variety of fabric colors as well as fabric prints. You're certainly not limited to square or the pointed finishes, but using a round finish or combining both the round and the square edge finish, that fabric can tell a whole different story. And once you do the Dresden hack, you can do even more. Allow yourself to ask what if and enjoy the creative process and all the design options. Have fun trying this hack and show us what you create. We'd love to see what you come up with. Post a photo on Instagram and use hashtag Nancy's Notions Hack. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, hit the like button and comment below telling us what you think. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you again next time. Thanks so much for watching. I'm here.
Take number 2, I'll take number 1.
Oh, no! Post a photo on Instagram and use hashtag Nancy's Notions Hack and tell us what you know if you enjoyed this video. Where's my cheat sheet? Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
Hi. So once you have your, now I'm keep saying so, we are sewing.
So what?
Yes.